The Shining, book versus film. Now, this was the first time I've ever done this where I read a book and then watch the movie right afterwards. Honestly, very excited. I was very excited to watch the film. I enjoyed reading the book. I enjoyed the film. And I'll probably continue to do this, book versus film, like this video here. But that being said, let's begin. I will say, spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about a lot of important parts about the film or the book. So spoiler alert. Let's start off with the book. The book was published in 1977 and it was written by the great Stephen King himself. Now, I said this in the last video where I read and reviewed a Stephen King book, If It Bleeds. You can't go wrong with a Stephen King book. You really can't. If you're new to reading, or if you've been reading fiction or like to read but you haven't read Stephen King, highly suggest reading a Stephen King book. I mean, the guy has like hundreds of books, it seems. But that's something that I enjoyed about this book here. I love his writing style. I love how he takes his time with the characters. You know, he does a very good job with the characters. He takes his time with it, telling their past, telling their story, you know, why they are the way they are. And for example, Jack, the main character of the story, you see how he's struggling with alcoholism. You see how it gets to the point where he breaks Danny's arm, and you see how that's a very important aspect of the story itself. So from the beginning, you know, he's building that character up, you know, so that's something I did like about the book, did like about the book, is that he takes his time with the story, with the characters. Another thing I like about the story is that there are stories within the story. You know, you go deep into these stories that connect with the main story. You know, there's these tangents and you get lost with the reading. You kind of continue to flip pages and it doesn't even feel like you're reading. That's something that I love about this book as well. Now, if I have to be picky, and I'm going to have to be picky because there's nothing else that I don't like about the book, I find it pretty silly that he writes about the hedges, aka bushes. I like to call them bushes. There's these bushes in the book. They're shaped, one of them is shaped as a lion, or three of them, and then you got a dog and a rabbit. I don't know. I thought it was pretty silly to use that as something that was scary, you know. And there's a point where Halloran comes back to save Danny and Wendy, and at one point I thought he was going to die by a bush. I was like, there is no way that he died from a bush, by a bush. I mean, I thought that was pretty funny. Another thing is the length of the book. I mean, it took me a week to 2 weeks to finish the story. It's a very long story. I feel like he could have, you know, really chopped it down, you know, chopped up the fat. But again, like I said, that's Stephen King for you. If you like long stories, you know, that take their time, this is definitely a book you want to read. But that's just me being picky. I'm just being picky at this point because, like I said, I really can't find anything else that I don't like about the book. Now, talking about the film was released in 1980, of course, after the book. The book came first. And it was directed by Stanley Kubrick, if I'm pronouncing that right. Now, the film, one thing I love about the film is the cast. Specifically, Jack Nicholson. I mean, the guy plays it right. He perfect for that role. The dude just plays a phenomenal role. I mean, the dude looks like a lunatic in the movie. He plays it so well. I don't think there could have been anyone better than him to play that role. Wendy, she doesn't really play in the book. She's very smart, resourceful. She's taking care of Danny. You know, she's a strong character. In the film, she's just crying and running around the whole movie. I feel like they didn't do her justice in the film. Danny plays a good role in the film. So definitely the cast was there. Like I said, specifically Jack Nicholson, I loved his role. Another thing that I liked was the aesthetics and the visuals. You know, you have that scene where the elevator's opening up and you have this rush of blood coming out, all that blood coming out of the elevator. Iconic scene. Another iconic scene is the twins at the end of the hallway where they're telling Danny to come play with them, and next you know, you see him on the floor. In the book, Danny doesn't see the twins. At least he doesn't mention it to where Danny's actually watching the twins, right? It's only in the film. Another great scene, iconic scene, I love this scene, is when Jack is breaking down the door with the axe. And then there's this gap in between the door. And he puts his head into it and he's like, "Here's Johnny." I mean, that's like the most iconic scene out there. Love that scene. But ultimately, I felt like the film was a condensed version of the book. And because of that, I feel like there are a lot of important points that are missed. Another thing I didn't like about the film is that it presents the Shining, you know, the ability that Danny has and Dick has. In the film, it's presented as something sinister, almost like a curse. You know, it feels like it's an evil thing, but in reality, in the book, it's something that helps Danny throughout the story. You know, he sees the future. He knows there's something wrong with the hotel, and it's also how Danny communicates with Dick, and how Dick goes and saves Danny and Wendy at the end of the book. So that's something that I will say about the film, is that it doesn't really present it that well. You know, the Shining, that power that they have. All that being said, there are a lot of differences between the film and the book. You know, you have Jack using an axe instead of a mallet. You got, in the film, you don't have the hedges like you do in the book. The maze, there's this maze in the film, whereas in the book there is no maze. So those are some of the differences, but there are three that really make me lean towards one side. And one of the differences is Halloran's death. I mean, in the book, Halloran comes back, saves Danny and Wendy, and they live happily ever after, right? In the film, he does all this traveling, right? Like he does in the book. He finally gets to the hotel, goes inside, and he just gets killed by Jack, by the axe, like right off the bat. Like he just walks in, gets killed, and it was like, are you serious? That was it? I didn't really like that about the film, the fact that he died just like that. Another difference is Jack's death. In the book, Jack dies in a really mysterious way. You know, the hotel gets to his head. He goes crazy, and there comes a point where Jack is about to kill Danny, but Danny realizes that it's not his dad. It's just the hotel, the evil, you know, I guess you can call it a spirit of the hotel that is disguised as Jack. And so Jack bashes his own head with the mallet, and the hotel presents itself in its form. In the movie, Jack follows Danny into the maze. Danny outsmarts his dad, gets out of the maze, and then Jack continues to roam around the maze. He's lost in the maze, and then he dies by freezing to death. I mean, very underwhelming. I was like, are you kidding me? That's how you're gonna kill the main character of the film. Another difference was the Overlook's end. The Overlook, the hotel itself. In the book, the boiler blows up, takes half of the hotel down, the rest burns down, right? You get that closure with the film. You know, there's no more hotel, there's no more Overlook and the evil spirits. It just gets blown up and burns down. In the film, it doesn't blow up. You know, Danny and Wendy leave with the truck thing, whatever you want to call it, a tractor looking thing, and the hotel remains standing. And there isn't closure. Those are the three differences why I lean towards the book being better. The Shining, the book over the film. But that is it, you guys. That was my decision. If you have another book that has a book recommendation that has a film, please leave it down in the comments below. I'll be glad to read that book and watch the film and do another book versus film video. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time I finish a book.